Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Hello.
It's Season 2, Episode 57, Austin. The Patriots defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday amid controversy, which we'll get to in a few minutes. The Steelers fall to 11-3 and are now in second place in the AFC playoff picture. Probably one of the most frustrating defeats in Steelers history, at least in recent memory. The Steelers fall by a final score of 27-24. They still have a chance at the number one seed, and they can clinch a first round bye this upcoming week, actually, but it was quite a frustrating game, Austin. I mean, there's so many different ways you can look at it, but real quickly before we get into it, just wanted to say that I came down to Long Island the past couple days. Austin and I got together. It was nice to see each other, hang out for a little bit, and reminisce a bit over the frustration that was this game. So I guess for everything with the emotions of this game, what do you have to say after seeing and kind of digesting now that it's, Friday night? Like, how do you digest this loss to the Patriots?
The offense and defense actually played about what I expected. If anything, the offense actually did better since they were without AB for most of it. So they kind of exceeded my expectations. The game hurt. Bad decisions at the end of the game cost Steelers home field advantage. I say cost, and it can be
in all likelihood cost. In all likelihood, cost them.
Yeah, in all likelihood, it's they won't have it throughout the entire playoffs if the Patriots make it through. But if the Steelers and Pats make it to the AFC Championship game again, Antonio Brown and Joe Hayden are going to come in swinging. So what were your takeaways from this game after letting it brew for a little bit?
Well, I think everyone's thought initially after the game was the Steelers are just never going to beat this team. But I think after having some time to think about it, going back and watching some tape of the game, I think it's clear that the Steelers were the better team for about 55 minutes of this game. That doesn't always mean you are the better team, but I think the Steelers were the better team, and I think they are the better team all around. Now, as we saw, that doesn't always translate to a win, but that gives the Steelers a good chance in a rematch. And the thing that frustrated me more than anything, Austin, had to be the way the Steelers managed the game following the crazy play with Jesse James, the two plays that ultimately cost the Steelers a potential chance at the number one seed with the 3-yard completion to DHB inbounds and then the interception instead of going for the field goal there. So we'll get into all that immediately, but the big news as far as the injury report goes, there's one injury in particular that got a lot of attention for sure, and that was Antonio Brown, who got leg whipped in the end zone as he was going for a pass early on in the second quarter. He missed the rest of the game. I gotta be honest, when I saw that play, I thought it was just a stinger, but when I heard he was going to the hospital, I really didn't know what to expect. Turns out, Austin, he has a partial calf tear and is definitely not going to play the rest of the regular season. They're projecting a 4-week absence, which would put him in to return right around the divisional playoff round, which means the Steelers securing a first-round bye is even more important now than it ever had been, but I guess all things considered, the Steelers did dodge another bullet here.
It could have been way worse. When I initially saw it, I thought he broke his leg. I thought his leg had a small fracture, which obviously would have been a huge deal as it took Joe Hayden out 5 weeks, and that would have meant that he would have basically not made it back for the playoffs. There was almost no chance.
Only the Super Bowl, pretty much.
Yeah, unless they made the Super Bowl, and it would be a slim chance. So I was expecting the worst. I was actually not excited because it's still not good. You don't want anyone to get hurt. But hearing that it was only a partial calf tear, and then he would come back for the playoffs was amazing. I thought there was no way he was coming back for playoffs. I thought he was going to be out for the year, to be honest. But so I guess we got sort of good news.
Yeah. Beyond that, there was only one other injury of note. Pitt's sensation and third-round draft pick James Conner. Unfortunately, I don't know the specific knee injury, but I know he suffered a knee injury that required surgery. He had the surgery already, but his rookie year is now over. I guess real quickly, what have you thought about James Conner this season as a rookie? I feel like, a lot of people were ready to have him, take over for Le'Veon Bell. There's a lot of places for Conner to improve, but you know what? As a number 2 back, I feel pretty comfortable giving Conner a few carries every game.
Yeah, I thought he was decently. I thought he did okay. Honestly, I felt like he got a 10-yard gain, almost on every first play that he came in, which it wasn't a lot of plays, but I feel like he's a pretty good backup. I don't really have much to complain about. Sucks that he got injured. It's such a great story. And,
it's been just really tough luck with him so far, and you would have liked to have seen him get a touchdown this season, but, obviously you can't plan that stuff all the time. He did finish with decent numbers as far as his average yards per carry. He had 32 carries on the season for 144 yards. That's good for a 4.5-yard clip. I don't believe he had any catches. He was not really a passing down back. His one big weakness was in pass protection, so the Steelers didn't like having him in there on passing downs. One thing which he did do, which I think we all knew he was going to do when he was playing, is that he was going to run really hard, and that's something that he definitely does. So now, Austin, it's time to break down the game, and I guess nothing looms larger in this game than the obvious play with Jesse James, so we'll break it down for you, the situation again. The Steelers driving down the field after that long pass play to Juju Smith-Schuster. I believe it was 69 yards on a short crossing route. Steelers call a timeout, draw up a play. Roethlisberger pumps out to the right on the play and then fires it back into the middle where Jesse James leaps and makes a good catch. And then he starts to fall. He reaches the ball over the goal line, and then the ball drops, and his hands and the ball hit the turf. And I gotta be honest, I'm pretty sure 90 to 95% of the people watching this game thought that this was a touchdown. It looked like a touchdown, and then only upon review was there doubt that was brought into it. So I guess I want to bring it up now because it's such a big issue, and it's something that I feel like we could talk about forever, but it's something I want to address now so we can just move on and talk about everything else that happened in this game. So I guess based on what we saw from the play, it seems as though the play was correctly called, but at the same time, if that looks like a touchdown, there wasn't any player on the Patriots there on defense that was making any argument against the case because it looked like a touchdown to them. So I guess in that case, I can personally accept that it was ruled correctly, but what I don't like is that how it looks like a catch to the casual viewer. It looks like a catch to just about anyone viewing. Why is that not a catch? And I'm sure you remember the Des Bryant play in the 2015 playoffs. I think it's pretty clear that the NFL's catch rule is flawed, and I have a couple of thoughts on how we could maybe change it or how we should change it, but I guess first tell me about what you think about, first of all, the ruling and about the actual rule itself.
Well, the whole play has replayed over and over in my head, and it's sadly the right call for a stupid rule. Had James been touched before he reached forward for the touchdown, there's no doubt in my mind that he would have been it would have been a catch down at the 1 yard line. But because he stretched out and the ball hit the ground and shifted a tiny bit, it was an incomplete pass. Don't take that as me blaming Jesse James either. I take issue with the rule. I believe that it should be changed so that a runner and receiver are treated the same, that if a catch is complete and then cross the line, it's a touchdown, simple as that, but not the stupid crap where the ball has to survive the ground even after James' knee was down when he crossed the goal line. But further from that, after watching it even more, for it to be a catch, he has to, and then cross the goal line, he has to make a football move, according to the thing. I believe that he brought the ball into his chest first on the play. I think he knew he wanted to get the catch first and then extend. I believe him bringing it into his chest is a football move. I feel like he is completing the catch right there, then reaching for the goal line. But because of the rule, that's not how the NFL sees it. I think that should count. To me, if you bring the ball into your chest and then still have enough time to reach forward, that's a catch, and then reaching for the goal line. It's almost ridiculous if you think about it. Like I'm literally explaining to you that he caught the ball, then reached over the goal line, but it's not a catch because it hit the ground. Even after his knee was down and he brought the ball into his chest. It's such a bad rule, and it needs to be changed. I hope it gets addressed after this season.
It's a
really
rule.
Bad.
It's a rule that overrules other rules in the NFL. Like, it literally is a rule that contradicts other rules.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And much of the same hysteria, or I guess rather the talk that happened after the Des Bryant catch controversy back in the playoffs a couple years ago, the NFL sat there and basically said that the fans were making a big deal out of nothing. Well, if they're willing to ignore this after they were willing to ignore that, which I'm betting they will, then there's no reason to believe anything will change, even if it should change, which is just mind-bogglingly confusing as to why that would be the case. I completely agree with you, Austin. I would have to think that, well, I would personally like to see that a receiver is treated the same as a runner, so that once they complete obtaining possession of the football on the catch and they get the 2 feet down, as soon as the ball touches the goal line, just touches a chalk, that should be the end of the play. Now, I know that might be just one thing to say it, it's another thing to see it, but basically what I'm advocating for is just a way to look at it and for just some sort of amending to take place. That's what we're talking about, because James is being penalized for trying to make a football move after he's already made a football move. He made the football move to make the catch, bring it into his chest, and he made another one to reach for the end zone. You're punishing somebody for trying to score, which is the main objective of the game. And that, to me, is kind of ridiculous. So, all right, Austin. Now that we've gotten through that, is there anything else that we need to talk about, that we need to say before we move on? I guess maybe we could address the whole, collusion or, the NFL loves the Patriots. I just wanted to say that I don't believe in that, because the whole sequence leading up to that seems kind of amazing, where it's like, all right, we're going to have the Steelers go 3-0, we're going to have the Patriots go right down the field, and then we're going to have them score, and then we're going to have Juju go 69 yards on the next play. They're going to score, we're going to overturn it, stuff like that. So there's no fixing. I want to make that clear. Sure, you can talk about penalties and whatnot, but I just think that's from incompetence in any case, as opposed to any fixing. I don't think that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't believe in the collusion either, I'm sorry, or that the NFL is rigged, anything like that. I will say that the refs did miss a bunch of penalties, in my opinion, which was interesting. As coming in, this is the unit of refs that have given the most penalties this year. So it felt weird. Like, one of the ones that bothered me the most, and I shouldn't even be bothered. A lot of people will forget about it. There was no pass interference or holding call on Martavis Bryant on his touchdown. It would have been declined, but regardless, he literally had his arm backwards, one of them, and Martavis Bryant had to make a one-handed catch, and it wasn't pass interference. I struggle to understand that. Then another one from my memory that's not just the Jesse James play, because everyone's going to be talking about that one, was when, I can't remember who it was, but someone slinged down Le'Veon Bell after Ben way overthrew him, and it was long over. And there was no unnecessary roughness penalty. And I was just looking at it like, that's exactly what Sean Davis did last week. And not to say that Sean Davis was right for it. Obviously, he got penalized and he deserved it, but it wasn't consistent. It was literally the same exact thing. Joe Flacco threw over, I believe it was not Alex Collins, it was Javorius Allen.
Buck Allen, yeah.
And Sean Davis threw him down, and he shouldn't have. It was after the play. It was way over. And I was wondering, why didn't Bell get that call? I believe that was on the third down play as well, so it would have converted. And then one more that I can remember, Rob Gronkowski didn't get called for taunting after his touchdown, but that was more debatable. A lot of fans were complaining about that one. That one wasn't
I have two more
to fight, but
I have two more.
I think the rest as a whole missed a lot on the Patriots in this game.
I have a couple more calls that people have been talking about. Did you see the Patriots let their last touchdown of the game, where Sean Davis was apparently held?
No, I didn't. I can't remember seeing Sean Davis held. I saw the touchdown, obviously.
Go check it out. I'm pretty sure the offensive lineman gets his arm around his neck, which I know doesn't always get called for holding, but usually when a lineman does that ends up getting called as holding. So there's that, and then you can also talk about, if you really want, Eli Rogers being held on the final play. I'm not going to take a ton of stock into that because that's the last play of the game, really, and you're not going to get that call often. Even if it was Antonio Brown, I don't really expect that to be called. But, I mean, who knows, I guess. But the ball shouldn't have been thrown in that case, or at least not where it was thrown. So that's a whole other issue to get to. But I guess first, do you want to start with the offense or defense? Because, I mean, it's pretty much the same story. They played about 3 solid quarters, and then they disappeared on the last one.
Let's start with offense. We'll keep it how it normally goes.
Okay. Do you want to start, or you want me to go?
I'll jump right into it. Admittedly, as soon as Antonio Brown went down, I mentally ruled the Steelers out of this game when I obviously shouldn't have, because the rest of the offense stepped up. Martavis Bryant came in clutch with some big catches, including a great one for a touchdown, where he caught it with one hand while Gilmore was literally holding his other one, and another diving one for a 39-yard gain on third down. He flashed some old Martavis Bryant in this game, and it was really nice to see. Then Juju Smith-Schuster did fantastic, even though more than half his yards came on that 69-yard play. But I feel like what you do when your team needs you most is what's important. And that 69-yard catch was clutch and gave the Steelers a chance. But I should really be talking about the quarterback play here, because Ben Roethlisberger was the better quarterback in this game, and you can't really often say that when you're versing Tom Brady. Despite the one interception, Ben threw for a better completion percentage and one more touchdown than Brady, when Brady had an interception as well on his record. So it's been great with Ben on fire. Sadly, the last decision to throw to Eli Rogers instead of throwing it away really impacted how I felt about his play for the game overall, because it was just awful. But again, overall, he did great. As you said, for 3 quarters, even for him, for more than 3 quarters, he was there until the last 20 seconds. He was doing great. Speaking of Rodgers made his one catch count, getting an 18-yard touchdown, but that's all he did for the game. That was it. He got targeted twice. Obviously, the second one was the interception, but that's really it. Then to wrap it up here, all we have left to talk about is the offensive line and the backs. Bell did fantastic here. This was his first 100-yard rushing performance since Week 7 against the Bengals, having 24 rushes for 117 yards here, which is an average of 4.9 yards a carry. And he also tacked on a touchdown. He also had 5 catches for 48 yards, so he did pretty good through the air, but a bit lower than I expected, actually. Then Connor got a nice 10-yard gain on one of his 3 rushes, but unfortunately, as we said, he got hurt. He tore his MCL and will now be out for this season. So here's hoping for a quick recovery for him. Lastly, the offensive line did okay-ish. They only gave up 2 sacks and a whopping 7 quarterback hits. Ben was getting walloped out there, and that wasn't good. He was hurt real bad in this game.
Did he seem less mobile to you?
I'm sorry, what?
Did he seem less mobile to you?
Yeah, a little. I think he might have been a little banged up and bruised up.
I feel like that might have accounted for a few of those. I wanted to point that out because he definitely seemed like he was hurting in that game.
Oh, yeah. As for the rushing game, they weren't bad. The offensive line in terms of rushing game, they weren't that bad, though. They actually did pretty good in open holes, more than they have all year, so that was pretty good. What did you see from the offense in this game?
Well, I think going into this game, most people kind of figured it was going to take a really good offensive performance. I predicted the Steelers were going to lose 38-28 because I just didn't believe in the defense, but I think in most cases, you would predict the Steelers would probably need around 27, 28 points at the minimum to win this game. And as it would have it, 28 points would have been just enough. Just like the defense did, which we'll get to later, the offense played well enough for 3 quarters to beat the Patriots. The numbers do look good here. Only 8 incompletions for Roethlisberger on 30 attempts, 300 yards, just barely under 300 yards, was only sacked twice. I really do feel like he was the better quarterback in this game, even like with the 1 interception he threw at the end. Which, yes, you can blame on Roethlisberger, but I think everybody deserves a good bit of blame for what happened at the end of the game, which we'll get to in a moment. But I guess, let me just address it now. So, the Steelers had about 3 minutes from the time James gets up after that play ends to when the play is ruled incomplete. The Steelers have that long, in which, Austin, you and I talked about this, at about roughly between 30 seconds to a minute, the Steelers coaching staff should have realized there's a chance this gets overturned. There's a chance that we could have the worst case scenario, this could have gone one of 3 ways. A, it could have happened the way it did happen, where it was ruled incomplete. It could have been ruled a touchdown, or I believe this would have been the worst case scenario, which was also a possible ruling, Austin. James gets ruled down at the 1. There is then a 10-second runoff and a running clock. The Steelers coaching staff, according to their press conference by Mike Tomlin, they were prepared for that instance, which is good for them, but what they weren't prepared for is what happened, which means they were not prepared. They had over 3 minutes to talk about the potential, ramifications of what would happen had the play been ruled incomplete. Their first play call was, kind of confusing to me, especially, there's a couple things here. Austin, I don't know if you saw what I had written down earlier, but the Steelers decided for this sequence to go with Darius Heyward-Bey at receiver instead of Martavis Bryant. Apparently it was a coaching decision. Is there any reason you would think that would make any sense at all?
Well, nope. Seeing as THB has barely any snaps with the offense this year, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why they thought he would be the better red zone player, but is there any explanation? I can't come up with one. I can't.
No, it doesn't make sense. I mean, add into that that Martavis Bryant's, first of all, a bigger and more proven receiver. And then what else happened in this game? Martavis Bryant probably played his best game of the year, and you're taking him out now? Right? Like, why?
It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. It was a bad decision, I think.
So there's that was really confusing. And then there was the first play call, which was the one that they apparently had decided. Did you know that they showed Ben Roethlisberger kneeling on the replay twice during that break? So apparently nobody told him, oh, there's a chance this gets overturned, we should call a play or two.
Honestly...
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was thinking about him kneeling, and I remembered that. I was like, oh, he's excited that he's just taking a rest now because the game is over. And then I saw it the second time. I'm like, all right, time to get up now. But all right, continue. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. But I guess it's just the first play. The Patriots come on a blitz. They bring one more rusher than the Steelers have blockers. Roethlisberger manages to escape the sack and get rid of the ball. Okay, that's good. Why is he throwing it to someone that's inbounds like that? And yes, I want to give credit to Malcolm Butler here because he made a great tackle that saved them the game by tackling DHB in bounds there. But I really question throwing for a route that short instead of just throwing it out of bounds. I really don't know why he made... I actually think that decision was actually worse than throwing the ball in the last play of the game there. That's actually how bad I think that was. Because after that, the Steelers kind of panicked, and I don't think they necessarily needed to. They had everybody lined up, and Ben Roethlisberger started calling, doing some hand signals. He wasn't exactly calling a play, which, again, they should have had ready in the first place. But, Roethlisberger sitting there doing hand motions, it's pretty clear what he's going to do. Even if even if he does clock it, we've seen the Steelers do this before. It's on tape where they run the fake spike. And on this play, nobody runs a route besides Eli Rogers. First of all, the play is usually a fade route there, and that's obviously not what you want. So they ran a slant with Eli Rogers, which is what makes sense with him. The only problem is there's 11 guys on defense, and yeah, some of them weren't standing up, but they were ready for that. And Roethlisberger literally had no other option. He could have potentially thrown it out of the back of the end zone, but you risk getting called for intentional grounding there if you throw it too high, and that ends the game with a 10-second runoff. And Jesse James, first of all, Jesse James was the only guy blocking. I forget who it was. I think it might have been Flowers. In any case, he was blocking him and then released into the flat where, first of all, he was not open. And second of all, because he released it, it forced Roethlisberger to unload the ball, which he did. He should have thrown it. He should have almost skipped it to him. But, it was just, that whole sequence was just a mess. And I guess there's blame to go everywhere. There's blame on the head coach. There's blame on the offensive coordinator. There's blame on the other receivers for not going on routes. There's blame on Roethlisberger for throwing the ball and for deciding to, basically, I don't know. I guess, it's just I feel like there was more time than he thought the Steelers had because it seemed to me like he rushed everybody and called something he shouldn't have called. So I think just all around, the Steelers were not ready for that situation, and as a result, it cost them the game, which is unfortunate because, as you already covered, Roethlisberger really did outduel Brady. Le'Veon Bell was fantastic again. Juju Smith-Schuster was great. Martavis Bryant had his best game of the year. Xavier Grimble caught a key third down pass. Antonio Brown had 2 big catches when he was in the game. It's frustrating because the offense played really well for most of this game, but they only had 24 points to show for it. And I knew that after that Le'Veon Bell touchdown, I was saying to myself, they just need one more. They just need to score one more time the rest of this game. They need one more touchdown, and I think they'll got it. They'll have it. But they didn't. And ultimately it cost them because, Austin, on the other side, there's Tom Brady and there's Rob Gronkowski, and I guess all that really matters for them is that they're there because sooner or later they'll beat the Steelers as they'll beat anybody. And the Steelers defense, I thought, held on valiantly for, again, 3 quarters, only giving up 16 points, but then they finally cracked in the final quarter, giving up 11 points at the end. And yes, the offense didn't help them at all, but they when it mattered most, they didn't play well at all. And I guess just how does that leave you feeling?
Leaves me sad. It makes me really, really sad that just watching on that final drive, Rob Gronkowski after Rob Gronkowski catch after catch after catch. I felt like I think he caught 4 balls on that final stretch for them to get that touchdown. But regardless, even though they did pretty bad, it's funny. I think the unit outperformed my expectations. I came in expecting way worse. The fact that Brady didn't get 30 points was in itself a victory because I thought he was going to easily get over 30. But I expected it to be what happened in the fourth quarter all game. So I guess that's something. But they obviously still didn't play good. I hope there's a rematch though, because if they meet again, Steelers will have Joe Hayden playing. And while most of the damage was done by Gronk late, I think Hayden would have helped shut down the wide receivers even more. Maybe if Joe Hayden is out there in coverage on the Brandon Cooks touchdown, maybe it never happens. It's all what ifs, but still, Joe Hayden is an upgrade at cornerback, so it's just what it is. Being honest, the Steelers just really don't have an answer to Gronk. There's not a player on the team that I think has a chance against him. Sean Davis tried his best, but it was really bad, but there's literally no one on the roster that I think could have handled him. Maybe T.J. Watt, but you can't have a linebacker shadow tight end. It doesn't even make sense. You can't just have them lined up and all over the field wherever Gronk is. He's at a specific position. A lot of fans don't understand that. But that's really the story for the defense. They let Gronk mess them up. It didn't seem like he was double-teamed enough, but apparently I wrote that, and then I've seen reports that he was double-teamed most of the game. I don't I was apparently wrong.
Here's what I heard, Austin. I heard that he had been double-teamed for most of the early part of the game, and then for whatever reason on the final drive, there were a couple blown assignments, and then there's Sean Davis out there, trying to stop probably, in all likelihood, the best all-around tight end ever. So, good luck.
Yep, exactly. That's the double-teaming Gronk is the only way the Steelers had a chance of stopping him. So the game plan was pretty flawed once they gave up on double-teaming him. There were only 4 balls he didn't catch. I think Mike Hilton was in coverage on 3 of them. So maybe Mike Hilton is the answer.
No,
but personally, I think
no. Austin, I know he's been good, but that's a significant height difference, dude. That's 6'7" and 5'9".
You gotta let me finish.
I'm sorry.
Personally, I think this was a coincidence because it's a big mismatch. They are very different in height. Yes, but I was getting there. I know I wanted to give my man a shout out, and then I wanted to say that it was I think it's purely coincidence because obviously, like you said, the mismatch.
I'm sorry.
Regardless, the only thing else I have to say is that Vince Williams has been amazing. I don't think he's gotten enough credit as of recently. He's been playing better than Lawrence Timmons could have had he stayed. And just something, and he just did something that hadn't been done by a Steeler in 12 years. Pick Brady. He's playing out of his mind this season. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate Vince Williams, now known on Twitter as Vince Williams, because he wanted to be a killer bee. So shout out to Vince Williams. But, what did you see from the defense in this game? Well, let's hear it.
Well,
Rip on them.
For 3 quarters, this unit held its own against its arch nemesis, the big bad Patriots. 11 points in the final quarter. I was very torn on how to feel with this unit at first. I mean, on one hand, the odds were really stacked against this defense. They were starting rookie Cody Sensabaugh with Joe Hayden out, and obviously they were missing Ryan Shazier still. They sacked Tom Brady and hit him 8 other times, I believe. That means almost a quarter of Tom Brady's dropbacks involved him being taken to the ground or hit at some point. That's a lot more than we've seen in past years. I know the last 2 years, I think just last year, Austin, I think the Steelers had 1 sack against Tom Brady. I think that was Javon Hargrave, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you are correct.
The Steelers have made it a habit of not getting any pressure on Brady, which would lead him to picking them apart. But they actually got some pressure on him this time, and as you said, it led to a Vince Williams interception, his first career interception, by the way. Couldn't have come at a better time, but the upsetting part was how the Steelers' defense basically fell apart in the final quarter. Specifically the go-ahead drive where the Patriots scored that touchdown with Dion Lewis basically off the back of Gronkowski. He was basically unstoppable, and even when Sean Davis had good coverage, Brady had a perfect pass and Gronkowski still had the catch. It's the same old question. How do you contain number 87? And I don't know what else you can do, Austin. Do you maybe jam him a little more? Do you have some sort of combination where maybe you have someone like Bud Dupree or TJ Watt kind of run with him for 10 yards and then you have Davis take over? Is there some sort of combination you can do there? Like, what do you do there? Is there anything you can do?
I'm not sure there's anything you can do. I don't think the Steelers have a player on the roster currently that can keep Gronk in check, even in a double team, because it's just a size mismatch, and he's just so great. I think you said it. It's just kind of like guarding Antonio Brown. It's just, you're really not going to. You're really just going to lose, and you kind of have to accept it. You just kind of have to try your best to shut him down, try your best to keep him double covered for most of the game, but they're still going to, he's the best wide receiver in the league. He's going to break out, and Gronk is the best tight end in the league, probably. It's probably up for debate whether it's Travis Kelce at the moment or him, but regardless, it's just something that the Steelers, I think, won't be able to overcome. It's really hard to say. I feel like this is looking forward, but I think I've decided at the moment that the Steelers in the draft need to get a safety, regardless, and maybe that's the answer. I think there's a really good one coming up. I can't remember his name. It's the Derwin something, but Derwin James, I think. But maybe the answer is in the next year's draft. I don't know. I don't think the Steelers have someone on the roster right now.
Boy, if we do get a safety, I just really hope it's not a 5'9" Shamarko Thomas again. That really didn't work out well covering Gronk with him.
Nope, that'd be awful.
In any case, it's just, I guess the only way to stop him is to get the pass rush, right? I guess that just means blitzing on that drive, which means you leave one-on-one coverage. So it's a double-edged sword. So, again, good luck. I guess.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
And then we would have been complaining about that Gronk was left single covered. I was already complaining about that, but honestly, it's looking in retrospect, but if he caught the ball anyway, they should have just sent the pressure. Honestly, they can't tell that at the time, but there was a chance at least Brady would have went down or got hit really hard. It would have affected his throwing. I don't know. In retrospect, everything seems easy.
No, you're absolutely right. Hindsight is 20/20, but at the same point, it's like looking back at that drive, maybe that's something the Steelers do in a rematch. Maybe not for the entire game, but maybe a little more. They kind of look at it and say, you know what? We tried our best coverages against 87. It didn't work. So we might as well make it a little bit harder for Tom to throw it, I think that's perfectly sound logic. The one thing I did want to see from this defense was an improved rush defense. The running game wasn't amazing for the Patriots, but I feel like it was just effective enough to keep the Steelers off balance. And it's tough to fault the defense in my mind when they didn't get any help in the final quarter, but I think they still have room to improve there. And yes, obviously, if the Steelers have Joe Hayden back, it really, in my mind, makes it a lot easier because then Brady really does only have Gronkowski in the backs. Brandon Cooks had 4 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown, but if you lock him down with Joe Hayden, I think you're looking at a much better opportunity for the Steelers to win that game if you're only keying in on one guy. And obviously, you can let running backs dink and dunk you a little bit as long as you make the tackle, which the Steelers, I want to say, I'm sorry, I feel like they did a pretty good job tackling on Sunday, didn't they? Or was that just me?
No, I think they did pretty good on tackles. I can't remember one where I said, wow, they really missed on that one. Like, it was an improvement from the past couple weeks.
That's definitely something that's encouraging to see, too. So it's not all bad. It is definitely not all bad. And as far as the special teams go, I felt like it was a pretty solid day. Chris Boswell continues to do his thing. 1 for 1 on field goals. Another 50-yarder, by the way. 3 for 3 on PATs. Jordan Berry had a solid average. I believe it was over 42 yards. I think it was 42 and a half yards. His last punt, he saved his best for last, a 60-yard punt that was down to the Patriots' 12-yard line. Unfortunately, the defense couldn't capitalize as the Patriots went on to score, but Berry definitely gave the defense a great chance to turn it around there. So as far as the specialists themselves go, it was pretty good. The return game, again, was not exciting, but I don't think we expect that to be good at all.
No. When you're last in the league, you expect the worst. I didn't really expect anything, but Smith-Schuster had a solid return at 27 yards early in the game, so that was good. But that's really all I had to say about special teams on the good side. For the most part, they're just average. They didn't really do anything. I guess you could say they were pretty good against the Patriots returners because the Patriots returning is it was number 2 and 3 in the league for kickoff and punt returns, I believe. So I guess they did pretty good against them for the most part. But I also thought Barry did terrible, personally. He had 1 great kick to make up for his other 3 bad to mediocre ones. 42, 31, and 38 yards were his other kicks. And just for some perspective, the worst punting average in the league is 42.1. So while I guess Barry had a good one when it mattered, he was pretty bad the rest of the day. And that big one brought up his average. So I just wanted to say that.
Oh, I was not aware that that's how high the lowest average was. I thought the average, league average was 43, 44 yards per punt. I did not know it was that high.
I gotcha.
Oh yeah, you do. I was not. Oh man, Jordan Berry hasn't had a very good year, has he?
No, he has not. It makes sense why he didn't make the Pro Bowl, even though he was one of the top voted punters. It was mostly Steelers fans with the blinders on.
Yeah, the Steelers' search for another NFL punter continues. In any case, Austin, I guess we can start putting this game behind us a little bit, but we still have a couple more things to get to. So we'll start with your award this week because we always start with the big stop of the week. Who's the player of the game in this frustrating defeat?
Well, the strong at the field player of the week for 6 catches or 114 yards with a long of 69. Juju Smith-Schuster wins stronger than steel player of the week. I thought it was a pretty hard week to choose. I thought Vince Williams was up there. I thought Le'Veon Bell did amazing per usual. I wanted to pick someone else, and the one fond memory I have really is that 69-yard catch was so clutch. The game was basically over. They were just trying to get into field goal range, and Juju put them, I guess, unfortunately, into touchdown range. I guess it didn't work out in the end, but when you think of it that way, but still, I think that play was incredible. And it was right at, what's funny about that play was it was right after I was mad at him for taking a return out of the end zone, killing clock with little clock to go, and not getting even to the 20, I believe. It was definitely before the 25. But regardless, so he really made up, one play later, he made up for his mistake on special teams. So I had to give it to him this week. So who's the stronger than steel big stop of the week this week?
Boy, it really felt like the Steelers were going to win when he saw him. It was just like that play with Bell against the Bengals, wasn't it, where he just kind of tiptoes the sideline. All of a sudden, he's running by midfield, and I was like, oh, my gosh, he's going to score. Or like, the Steelers are going to win now, you know? That play gave me hope. And it was certainly a bright spot in the very dark sequence there. But in any case, the big stop of the week, I think it's pretty obvious. There's a couple of good plays. There's a sack by Cam Heyward, a big sack by Bud Dupree with the Patriots threatening. But I think it's got to be Vince Williams, Austin. As you said earlier, 12 years between interceptions. Vince Williams finally gets it done. He pulls in the ball, juggles it a little bit. But, man, even Tony Romo on the broadcast couldn't believe it. He said this place is going bonkers. And the Steelers followed it up with a touchdown. I thought the Steelers were going to win the game from that point, but, man, it was really crazy when Vince Williams caught that ball because I think at that moment it showed the rest of us that, you know, it's kind of like that, I think it's Rocky IV with the Russian fighter. Have you ever seen Rocky IV?
No, I haven't.
All right. Well, basically, it's a Russian fighter, and he's basically constructed like a robot. He looks like he's invincible. And that, to me, is what the Patriots have been to the Steelers. And all of a sudden, just like in Rocky IV, where he connects with that punch and he starts bleeding, all of a sudden, he's not a robot anymore. He's a mere mortal. And all of a sudden, the Patriots were right there. They were mortal, and they were bleeding. And obviously the Steelers didn't put it away, but at that moment, I think I saw that, and I think a lot of Steelers fans saw that, and they were like, you know what? We have this team. We can beat this team. So I think that is definitely worthy of the big stop of the week. And even though it didn't come in a Steelers win, I think Vince Williams' interception might have been one of the biggest defensive plays of the season. So for that, Vince Williams earns the big stop of the week. So Austin, the play of the game, there were a lot of good plays, but I think we're going to go with a pretty nifty one-handed catch, huh?
Yeah, I think it had to go to Martavis Bryant. That catch was amazing. He was held on the play, in my opinion, if not the refs. And it was not a catch that Martavis Bryant has been able to make this year. He has not been able to make catches with a guy right on top of him or breathing down his neck. And you know what he did? He caught it with one hand. He did his best Antonio Brown impression right there. And I think that it was easily his best catch of the year, which he actually put up probably his second best catch of the year in this game as well, too. So,
absolutely. It was a banner day for Bryant. So good for him, and it definitely bodes well going forward for the Steelers. Who impressed you on offense in this game?
On offense, it was Juju Smith-Schuster. With AB down, he came in pretty clutch as the number one. Mostly that 69-yard gain that brought the Steelers to the other side of the field with less than a minute to go. But he also had the 27-yard kickoff return, which was nice. So he impressed on offense. Who impressed on offense for you?
We're going to stay in the position group. Again, losing a guy like Antonio Brown is you feel like you're never going to be able to replace him. You said you kind of mentally wrote the Steelers off. I didn't openly do that, but I was pretty darn close. I mean, This was a guy earning MVP consideration for good reason, mind you. And then Martavis Bryant comes out and he puts up his best game of the year. Yes, he only had 4 catches for 59 yards, so he didn't exactly light up the stat sheet, but I'm thinking of 3 catches, or wait, no. Yeah, 3 catches. No, all 4 of his catches were big, Austin. He had that. His first catch was a diving catch, which I saw that and I was like, that's the best play he's made all year. And then, of course, on the next drive, he pulls in that one-handed catch. That was spectacular. I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I just was agreeing with you. Yep.
Oh. He had, I'm missing one, but I know he also had a big third down conversion to, I think it was like a 12-yard catch on a third down where he was actually being dragged down while he was making the catch. He struggled with those a lot, and I'm missing one other one, aren't I?
I can't remember it. I thought he only had 3 big catches. I couldn't remember the 4th.
It's possible I might have been thinking of someone else, so I think that might have been it. But in any case, Bryant made 3 of his 4 catches. He made them count, so that was definitely big time for him. So I was really impressed with him, and I think going forward, if he can show up like this, we said you can take the 4 catches for 40 yards. If you can get 4 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown, you take that all the time, especially when they're the catches that he made. He did a great job, even though he did have a drop on his first target, I believe. But I was impressed with Bryant this week. So who impressed you on defense?
Defense is Mike Hilton. Even when he seemed to be beaten on plays, he made breakups or stopped the play. I saw him 3 times break up a huge play in this game, and he just continues to be one of my favorite Steelers at the moment on the team. He was also Pro Football Focus's number 4 best cornerback of the week by their grades, if that means anything to you. It doesn't usually mean anything to me. I just wanted to point it out. So who impressed you on defense?
Well, it was actually Bud Dupree, and no one's going to mistake him for Von Miller, but I think he did what he was supposed to do in this game, Austin. He's supposed to sack Tom Brady, and yeah, you probably would have wanted 2 or 2.5, but you know what? His sack came at a crucial point with the Patriots driving. His sack forced a Patriots field goal attempt when they could have gone out there and tied the game, but he had a big sack, and I thought I was ready for that to be the big stop of the week, but obviously it didn't amount to anything since the Steelers ended up giving up the touchdown on the next drive and lost the game. But I thought his sack came at a crucial time, and he provided some important pressure at certain times of the game. So I was impressed with him as well. On the other side, Austin, obviously there's a lot of disappointment to go around in this game. So who disappointed you on the offensive side of the ball?
On the offense was Eli Rogers. With Brown going down, he only got 1 catch. Sure, the 1 catch was important and a touchdown, but I expected him to get more when he was getting more playing time. And it wasn't like the touchdown was spectacular either. He wasn't touched at all. I don't know. It just bothers me that he only had 1 catch, and that Rosberg only targeted him twice. And the other one was obviously the interception. But I feel like when you're on the field for that much, because he was basically the next man up, I feel like he should have been targeted more. Maybe that's on Ben. I don't know. I feel like Rodgers has lost Ben's trust. I feel like he's just – I want to blame Rodgers more than Ben because Ben has been on fire. So it's just in my mind it's Rodgers' fault. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but I don't know. I just haven't seen Rodgers do much. Who disappointed you on offense?
Man, he's just so inconsistent this year. It's just so strange because he was the exact opposite of that last year.
Yep. He was clutch. He was consistent. He put up good points. Good yardage. Good
yardage, which led to good points. You know, it's very strange. But in any case, I was disappointed with Jesse James. Now, hear me out. The NFL has an idiotic rule for what a catch is and isn't, and he should have a touchdown. So he should have finished with 3 catches on the day and the game-winning touchdown. Now, unfortunately, I can't add that in, so I feel kind of bad picking on him here. But at the same point, I felt like there weren't many other people to pick on. So I'm not going to say he was awful on blocking, but I know him ending his block and breaking off on the last play, which he probably should have done anyways, ended up getting Roethlisberger killed. So, well, not killed, but it forced him to unload the ball so he wouldn't get killed. I don't know. It's just, I know I'm nitpicking here, but I needed to pick somebody, and it's just, I was hoping for a little more from Jesse James because I know he was your X factor, and I kind of thought this was the game where Heath Miller was huge in 2011. I kind of thought this would be a big game for him, And again, we know he should have had a touchdown, but he didn't, so I needed to pick somebody. It was either him or Darius Heyward-Bey, who literally played 2 snaps, so I didn't feel like it made sense picking him. So, sorry, Jesse James. You really didn't deserve any of the crap that happened this week, so I apologize for adding fuel to the fire here. But in any case, who disappointed you on defense?
On defense, it was Sean Davis. Again, he gets a spot here. He played badly. And sure, there was literally nothing better he could do, but most of the time he's just not doing well at all, and that's on him. He got destroyed by Gronk in a mismatch several times, and he's not prepared to go against Gronk again. So I'm worried about future, but I guess that might not even be something that happens. I don't know. Who disappointed you on defense?
Kind of surprising. I had to look for this a little bit. I'm actually pretty disappointed with Stephon Tuitt, Austin, and there's one reason for it. It's that you and I finished with the same amount of sacks that Stephon Tuitt did, the same amount of sacks and tackles, so he was blanked on the stat sheet. Actually, that's not entirely true. He did have 1 quarterback hit, but I just felt like he wasn't overly effective in doing anything, whether it was rushing the passer or stopping the run. I definitely noticed Javon Hargrave and absolutely Cameron Heyward in this game, but I just felt like Tuitt wasn't around very much. Was that just me? Did you get that feeling too?
The only time I remember Tuitt was on a play where Tom Brady had like 6 seconds in the pocket, and Tuitt was chasing down. I think this is where he got a quarterback hit. And then Brady should have been sacked like 6 times over by the time that anyone even got to him, and he still got the ball off. That's the only time I remember Tuitt, and I was just mad because no one was taking down Brady when he had all the time in the pocket.
Was this on the last drive?
He got it flushed out. I'm sorry. He just had all the time in the world to throw.
Was this the last drive?
I can't remember. I can't remember when it was.
There's one play where I felt like the entire game was hanging in the balance. I think it was the first throw to Gronk, where Brady steps up in the pocket and just barely, hits Gronk in stride, who's just half a step in front of Sean Davis. That play felt like the game to me, and I know that there was half the field to defend at that point, but as soon as they converted that, because incoming was TJ Watt, and I think Tuitt on that play. I could have been wrong, but I felt like I saw them coming on off the edge, and they were like a half second from getting him, but Brady steps up and fires it into Gronkowski's chest. And right at that point, I was like, that was like the game there, which, it wasn't, but it felt like it. But in any case, Tuitt really I didn't feel like he was up to par this week, and they really needed him this week because everyone else seemed to be performing in this game. So I guess, Austin, in conclusion, the Steelers are 11-3. They still have a chance with wins the next 2 weeks to have the best record ever under Mike Tomlin. They still have a chance at a first-round bye. They're still a really darn good team, and I think there's a significant argument to be made successfully that they're still the best team in the AFC, at least as far as a complete team goes. So, in all likelihood, the Steelers and Patriots have a good chance of rematching in the AFC Championship game. How likely is it, assuming that they go to Foxborough, because they'd probably both win out, how would you feel about the Steelers' chances in a rematch in Foxborough?
I feel good. Brown and Hayden will more than likely be back for this rematch, and they could be difference makers in this game. We'll be sad that it will be in New England if it happens, though, more than likely, unless the Patriots somehow lose one of these final 2 games. Be in New England, that makes me sad. To be fair to the Patriots, they're also getting Chris Hogan back, which Chris Hogan is just. I just think of the AFC Championship. He had so many catches for so many yards. So, I mean, maybe it will still be poor, and they'll also get Kyle Van Noy back, who's been they're really a good rush stopper. So it might be a better. They're getting improvements as well, but I think the Steelers are still ready for a rematch. What do you think?
Well, now that a few days have passed, like I said earlier, the narrative about the Steelers never being able to beat this team, I think it's true because they haven't won, but I think I don't think it's necessarily valid. If the Steelers if they play this game in Pittsburgh, Austin, I'd feel very good about their chances of winning this game because now that they've been through this situation, I think they know that they're probably the better team, and should something like this happen again, I think they'll be ready. So there's that going for them. If they have to go to New England, where New England so rarely loses, I think it's just as simple as taking a page out of the Ravens playbook. The Ravens went to New England in 2011 in the AFC Championship game and just barely lost that game. The following year, they went out there and they smacked the Patriots around and beat them in the AFC Championship game in Foxborough. Not saying that'll happen this year, but, the Steelers can take what they learned from last year, and I think that they know that they're better than they are last year. The Patriots are not as good as they are last year. They played well, and I think in all likelihood they'll have Joe Hayden and Antonio Brown back. I think that'll be a huge boost for both sides, and, they got better quarterback play from Ben Roethlisberger. That means Ben Roethlisberger knows he can outduel him. And just even in a rematch in Foxborough, it'll be tough for the defense, but I feel good about a rematch here. I think the Steelers really can beat this team. So I guess until then, we'll see. The Steelers have other games to play, and so do the Patriots, but obviously the next game between the two teams is weighing heavily on everybody's mind. But for the time being, Austin, the Pro Bowl rosters were released, and the Steelers were well represented with a league-high 8 for one team. They are, in order, Ben Roethlisberger, quarterback, running back Le'Veon Bell, wide receiver Antonio Brown, offensive tackle Alejandro Villanueva, offensive guard David DeCastro, and center Marquise Pouncey on offense, and on defense it was Ryan Shazier and specialist kicker Chris Boswell. So I guess real quickly rank them as far as how you feel they was most and least deserving, starting from most to least. And then just if you think, are there any Steelers here that got snubbed, do you think? And just tell me if you have one or two.
All right, so my list goes as follows. Number 1 is Brown. Number 2 is Boswell. Number 3 is DeCastro. 4 is Bell. 5 is Roethlisberger. 6 is Shazier. 7 is Pouncey. 8 is Villanueva. I felt like Villanueva just shouldn't have even been in here. No offense to him. I love Villanueva, but he's not Pro Bowl ready yet. He's not that good yet. He still has some development to do. He's still not that great, and I think I've said it in a podcast before, but we obviously know why he got here. He got so many votes because of his military and the stuff that happened in the tunnel earlier this year. So everyone knows his name, and when they were picking left tackles, we're like, I'm going to pick this guy. So everyone else, I think, is pretty deserving. Villanueva was the only one that I think made it in that probably shouldn't have. But for snubs, I think for me, it's easy to say Nick's got snubbed as he's a perfect blocker, and I thought that touchdown catch might have cemented it, but it may have been too late for the Pro Bowl voting. I think it might have been over at that point, but then I also think Ramon Foster is a snub, considering Villanueva got in. I think Foster's way better than Villanueva. So what's your list, and then who do you think got snubbed?
Well, I did some quick thinking after you were mentioning your list, because we did some looking at David DeCastro today and his Pro Football Focus rankings and whatnot. So I have a pretty similar start to my list. It goes, for me, Brown, Boswell, and DeCastro to start. Then I have Roethlisberger and Bell, just switching those up, and then Shazier, Pouncey, and then Villanueva. So to me, Cameron Heyward is the obvious snub. He's the first Steelers player with 10 sacks in a season in 7 years, from a position that doesn't get many sacks in a 3-4 scheme. Tyler Matakevich was the other potential snub that I was thinking of, just because he was leading in special teams fan voting for a long time, and he started the year pretty well too. Outside of that, you already covered Roosevelt Nix pretty well, so I don't really have anything else to add to that. He's been a terrific player this season. And again, Austin, I don't want to harp on Alejandro Villanueva. He's a solid player. It's amazing he's done what he's done so far. An A-plus level person, but I don't think he's quite there from a football playing standpoint yet. I'm still quite proud of him, but I don't think he's quite there yet. So let's move on now. In response to the James Conner injury, the Steelers signed former Patriots running back Stephon Ridley. He's been signed to replace Conner as the primary backup. So what do you think of this move? Ridley played only one game last year and hasn't played at all this season.
He's a solid receiving back, so I guess that's cool. I'm just, you kind of think about it, I'm a little bit surprised they didn't bring back D. Will. I feel like he was a fan favorite, and if he's just going to be a backup, I feel like D'Angelo Williams probably should have been brought back. I know he's old, but I mean, I don't expect to see Ridley much, and Ridley hasn't really played, so I don't know. I felt like D. Will should have been number one, but it was up to them. What do you think?
No, I'm in complete agreement. From what I've heard from the grapevine, it sounds like Williams just really isn't in football shape, which I guess Ridley is. So I guess that's the reason for it. I guess Williams embraced his retirement more, which obviously, D'Angelo Williams is one of my favorite Steelers ever, so I would have loved to have seen him come back. But, it is what it is. I'm sure Ridley will get a few chances, but he has had a fumbling problem in the past. It's what got him cut from the Patriots years ago. So I'm interested to see how he does with that and how he holds up in pass protection. So time will tell there. Marcus Gilbert has returned from suspension. Who do you think is likely to get cut after his, I guess he just gets reactivated from suspension?
Yeah, he's on the same list. He's at the IR or suspended list, and then he just gets put back onto the active roster. So I think it's going to be L.J. Fort. With Matakevich back and the Steelers obviously liking Spence more than Fort, I think it has to be Fort. I think he's gone. Who do you think is going to get cut?
I'm actually thinking you're probably right. I thought at first it was going to be Cody Sensabaugh because I thought his injury was more of a long-term injury, but he's been limited in practice the last few days, so he's actually closer to coming back than I thought. So I guess it's going to be him because it's not going to be a receiver. It could be Matt Filer, so we'll have to see. I imagine a roster move will be made really soon here, though. So, all right, Austin, let's go look around the rest of the league, see what's going on. Aaron Rodgers was just shut down by the Packers, who were eliminated from playoff contention with their loss to the Panthers. Is this the right move? I'd have to think so.
I think it is. Aaron Rodgers wanted to play. I think it's just stupid. Let him heal up and get ready for next season. There's no reason to play him and have him get hurt.
From that same game, Panthers linebacker Thomas Davis has been suspended 2 games, which was reduced to 1 game on appeal, for a block that concussed Davante Adams. I don't believe I saw that. Can you describe it for me?
I only saw it once, but basically it was very similar to the Juju Smith-Schuster one on Vontaze Perfect, except obviously opposite way around. But I also wanted to say, poor Davante Adams. That's the second time that someone got suspended off of concussing Davante Adams this season. First one was Danny Trevathan earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. He got suspended for hitting Davante Adams. Now Thomas Davis put a block on Davante Adams and just, again, concussed. That's awful. That sucks. Poor Davante Adams had to go to the hospital earlier this year, and he's getting concussed again. And apparently he was pissed in practice. But back to the actual play. From what I remember, it was a pick, and they were returning the ball, and Thomas Davis just puts a block on Davante Adams. Apparently, Thomas Davis didn't mean to hurt him. It looked a little bit bad in the replay, but other than that, it is football. It was basically just football. That's really all I got to say.
All right. Other notable scores. The AFC West showdown between the Chargers and Chiefs turned out to be a huge win for the Chiefs. The Chargers' playoff hopes are now on life support. I got to be honest, I thought the Chiefs were going to win. I didn't think they were going to win like this.
I didn't think so either. The Kareem Hunt took over for them. Kareem Hunt also ruined my fantasy life, so I hate you, Kareem Hunt. Stop that.
Okay, the Seahawks, it looks like they're done, man. After years of hating them, I guess, or not liking them, it looks like their run is over. We kind of thought it was done last year, but it looks like they might finally be falling apart after a 35-point loss at home to the LA Rams.
Yeah, that was really nasty. That was so bad. The Rams player came out and said that it felt like he was versing the Cleveland Browns. And that's just awful. That's just a sentiment. They don't have defense anymore. Their defense is not it's not the Legion of Boom when 2/3 of the Legion of Boom is injured or hurt. And Oh my gosh, I'm confusing which one was which. Which one is the one that was injured? Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor?
It was Earl Thomas.
He shouldn't have played.
I believe it was Bobby Wagner said Thomas shouldn't have played.
Okay. Oh yeah, Cam Chancellor's on IR. I was confusing even more players. Yeah. So there's just discrepancies, and then they were fighting each other, and it's just not good. It was not good at all.
They're fighting each other. They're fighting other players on the other team. This is the second week in a row it's happened.
They're very sore losers. I will say, because I guess we haven't seen the Seahawks lose that often. I guess they're not used to, but they are very, very sore losers. And I can tell you right now, I'm not a fan of Michael Bennett whatsoever. I actually hate him. He's my least favorite player in the league, and that sentiment to Vontaze perfect. Because there's a lot of things not to like about Michael Bennett that I won't go into. But yes, they're sore. They're very sore losers, and they can't handle anything well. So that's all I have to say.
It goes all the way back to that Super Bowl. You remember how Super Bowl 49 ended?
I don't know.
Well, after that pick, they started fighting the Patriots.
Yeah, people will say the Steelers are a dirty team, but Steelers are doing things, blocking between the plays and stuff like that. That's the definition of a dirty team. That when you start losing, you start throwing hands. Like, how childish. I think that the Seahawks, I have always thought the Seahawks have been kind of dirty. Not one of the most dirty, but I think that's just messed up. I think that's really, really stupid.
Yeah, it's just a bad look. But in any case, we'll have more to get to on that later. So, Austin, Week 15 of the NFL season is in the books. Only 2 left in the regular season. It's flying, man. And we'll be back in a few minutes. We'll get started right away on our preview episode for the Steelers and Texans game on Christmas Day. Looking forward to seeing that one. Austin, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Nope, I think we're good.
Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions about the show or you want to ask us questions about the Steelers, feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on our various social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And you can find all that information on our website, strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. Austin, thank you again for joining me. It's good to be here in Long Island. Hopefully we can get together and do an episode in person here as we enjoy the holiday season. And hopefully we enjoy the Steelers getting to yet another 12-win season. But we'll have more on that in just a few minutes. So, as always, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast.
Good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.